to go over some simple stuff that I've been getting a lot of questions about in person, out just shopping, because I buy the same things over and over again, and everybody asks me if that's all I use. It just tends to be a staple in my arsenal of things, and kind of keeping the headaches away. Everybody knows there's like headaches. You know, you got bait casters, you get rat's nests, you get spinning reels, you get balls. Just stupid things that can be prevented. So today is going to be based on what I call it is it's just like a fluorocarbon leader, and I know a lot of people do the line to line knot. Um, for me, I don't like using swivels. I'm a big believer in snaps because they tend to hinder the restrictive motion of your bait. Just like so if you use a standard inline swivel, what you're going to end up with is all that extra weight over the bait. And 9 times out of 10, like you can use this in the wintertime too, is say you tie direct to a jigging wrap. You know, they when you give them the snap, they go in a big circle, and the whole purpose behind this leader that I use on a regular basis is anything that likes to spin in a circle, anything that likes to twist up your line, you'll notice over time if you go fishing enough, which you should be, is you'll get balls of line that just want to knot up as you're bringing them in, or you'll notice your lure spinning in goofy ways in the wintertime, and that can actually turn fish off. So I'm going to describe something real simple to you. I'll do a little bit more close-up stuff just so you can see, but so I keep all my stuff in these neat little tubes for extra stuff. But so first you're going to need a regular snap. Well, everybody might ask me what a snap is. It's basically the end piece of a swivel. You can usually get them in, I think Custom Jigs and Spins offers them with all of their spoons, or you can just buy a bag of snaps. It's not a snap swivel, it's just a snap. And you'll see why after I build it, why I use just a snap. And you go as light as you can for the bait you're using. Obviously they make heavier and lighter snaps. If you use the heavier ones, it's for bigger, bigger spoons, bigger spinners, whatever. And then an inline swivel, which is basically the swivel part by itself that you tie both pieces of line to. So one from one side, one on the other side. You'll need fingernail clippers or a scissors. Doing it in the boat, small tip for anybody, get one of those little clips, put a ring on a pair of dollar store fingernail clippers, and there you go. Keep it in the boat. Cost you $1.25, maybe $2 to have something very useful always at hand in the boat. So without further ado, I'm gonna get a little bit closer up on this one so you guys can actually see how this all goes together. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm always willing to field answers and try and get you guys to understand why I'm using the thing I am. So be right back. Okay, hopefully you guys can see this. I tried getting a little bit closer up here so you can see what I'm working with. If you can see that, that's the snap I'm talking about. If you can tell, it's got the same characteristics as a normal swivel. It's just missing the swivel part. That's the swivel part. That's your inline swivel. So that's the one that gets tied into the line. This one gets tied at the end of it. So what I do is, this is a piece of line I cut off here, right off my pole, so it's a little wrinkly, but you get a fresh piece. And you can go heavier with this or even lighter. It just depends on how you want your leaders. I know a lot of people will go with like 12-pound test main line and then a 6-pound leader, like this 6-pound test, for sight purposes in clear water. So to make this simple, nice and quick for you guys, is I like to tie it to the snap, or the swivel, the inline swivel first. It doesn't really matter what line you or knot you use. I just like to double through, I forgot what it's called. I'm sure somebody will actually know what I'm talking about, but it's basically like a regular knot. You go around 3-4 times, 4 or 5 times, and then back through both holes, and then back through the main loop. Always wet your knots. that's tied to the one end, and then this is where those fingernail clippers come in handy because they're nice and small. So you just get your tag line. The upside is with the swivel up here, you don't have to cut it ridiculously close. Although I kind of have that ability, you know. I'm just used to cutting it closer than most people need to be. So now that's tied to one end. And then you just take your snap swivel, which I'm going to try and show this to you guys closer. Hopefully it'll focus on it. You tie it to the end of that. Same knot. I always like this double through knot because I tend to use lighter line than most people. And the stronger knot actually gives you a little bit more fighting ability for the pound test. I like 6 pound test across the board and catch basically anything on it. Obviously, if you're going for musky or big northern, you'd have to go maybe a little bit heavier than that. I've actually honestly caught them on 6 pound test, so it just depends on how you want to fish. Same thing. So that's tied on there good. This one I cut a little closer just because it's going to be down by the bait. But the whole reason for this snap, and I'll grab a bait real quick and show you. Good understanding of this. So now you have this piece of line basically tied between, this is your inline swivel, so this gets tied to your main line on your pole, and then you have your leader, and then you have snap. And if you see, it's very minimal. So like in the wintertime when fish are, you know, shyer, you're fishing really clear lakes, that tends to be a lot better usage. But let me grab bait for you real quick. So for instance, get one that can describe it real good. So I like slender spoons a lot, made by Custom Jigs and Spins. If you haven't used one, this is an extremely fluttery spoon. So like when you jig it, it tends to shoot off, and then when it comes down, it'll swim away, but as soon as you snap it, it flutters itself down and then keeps spinning. And these actually come with this snap for that exact reason, because if you were to tie to it, that's fine, but with the snap, it gives its really free range of motion, and then without having a big heavy swivel right here, the heaviest part of the bait is still the bait itself. So if you run a real big swivel here, it takes away from the bait. And you can use these in summertime. A lot of people think it's just a winter bait, but you can use it all year round, and it works really good for a lot of different fish. But the key is having this leader, because if you were to drag this in tied to a main line and it didn't have a swivel, it would spin around, and eventually you'd end up with that really big knot. So that's my little secret tip for today. I'll keep trying to think of new ones. This one just kind of popped in my head, and I figured, you know, what the heck, I talked to enough people about it, so I might as well help other people figure this one out. So next time you're at the bait shop, just these are that's a S Pro or Spro swivel. You can use any inline swivel as long as it's, you know, spins freely, but this is a barrel swivel, so I've never really had any problems with that creating a knot. And then this clip here, I think there's like 5 or 6 companies that make them, and then like I said, I think Custom Jigs and Spins and a couple other companies actually make this. So, and they're all about the same thing, so there's really no difference. It's a snap swivel, so it's just the snap. Hopefully you got that down and you put it to use. I would love to hear from a few people, anybody that takes it out and uses it, if they notice any difference in their bites. I mean, like I said, you could put anything that spins on here, And the other thing too is, so I know a lot of people drop shot or finesse fish or anything like that, or Texas rig or Carolina rig, whatever. You can run this inline with any one of those. You don't necessarily have to use this and the snap. So you can use that just to keep your leader separate from your main line, and that way you're not getting any tangles from any twisting or any motion of the bait. So with all that, I hope I helped a few people out, and like I said, questions, comments, and I would love to hear back from anybody that gives that a try. See you next time.